Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. I want to say thank you to everybody who got a chance to see my other videos. For today's video we're going to do another ranking. This time I'm going to be tackling all the DC movies within the DC cinematic universe, and I'll also be including the Joker, considering it's fairly new and they're going to have like a DC Black label. So we'll go from there. So yeah, let's just start right off. My number one is going to be Aquaman. I personally thought this was just a great movie in terms of a superhero origin story. For example, this movie was released in 2018. It was the highest grossing movie for the DC universe. It made $1.148 billion at the worldwide box office, and that was the second movie to hit $1 billion mark from the DC side. So that was pretty good. They did good job in the box office, so it showed that they had a lot of hype around the movie and people were able to go and rewatch it over and over again. Why I thought it was my number one pick was because they were able to do a phenomenal job with how they showed Atlantis and how it had never been done before, like an underwater setting like that. I thought they did a really good job at making it come to life. Especially considering Marvel hasn't done anything like that yet, so they set the standards pretty high. I also really liked it because in most cases Aquaman is kind of like a dork. He's just like a guy who could talk to fish and his powers aren't really that great, but they were able to turn him into such a badass, and Jason Momoa was really well casted for the role, so that was another reason why it's up there. I liked it because this movie took place after the events of Justice League, so you get to continue his character arc and see it progress from his first appearance in Justice League and then continue as how he actually became Aquaman and the King of Atlantis and all that story. The villain was really good, or the villains I should say, Black Manta and Ocean Master. I thought they did a good job, and how each of them had a different agenda, but in the end, you know, he was able to prevail through and have his superhero story. And I'm excited to see what the director and the whole production studio of the studio will do with Aquaman 2. So for that, Aquaman is going to be my number one spot. Moving down the ranking to number two was Joker. This movie was released in 2019. It was, I believe, the second or third highest box office that the DC label has accumulated. It grossed $1.74 billion at the box office, and this movie for me was good. I almost didn't like it at first, just because, you know, I'm a big Joker fan, and I was like trying to see how he would live up to Heath Ledger's expectations and all that. But that being said, I think you can't compare the two roles because they played two different characters. I know it was the Joker that they both played, but Joaquin Phoenix played like a different version of the Joker, and there's no comparison. His portrayal was phenomenal. I know the movie got a couple Oscars, and I just really liked it because it was different in the sense that it wasn't your traditional superhero movie. There's actually no hero in there whatsoever. It was obviously more dark, more realistic, and you almost get to feel like you can relate to the character. As crazy as the Joker is and as wild as he is, like criminally insane and all that, you relate to him because you see all the hardships that got him to the place that he got. The character development was amazing. The music and his scene dancing down the stairs, I mean, that's iconic. That's going to be an iconic movie scene to the end of time. So that being said, I'm going to have Joker as my number two spot. I'm excited to see what they do with the second movie and keep them moving forward with the DC Black label. Down to number three. I had to kind of fight for this one because I originally had Wonder Woman in my number three spot, but I didn't give Superman enough credit as I should have. So here we are, number three, Man of Steel. This movie was the first movie of the DC universe. This was released in 2013. The box office rating was 668 million, which is pretty decent for the first, first universe building movie. It's about a good happy medium. It could have done better considering how big superhero movies are nowadays. So I'll give it that for its time. The special effects were good for its time. The character development was really good in my eyes. I liked how how his story was affected, especially with the relationship with his dad, and how he had the chance to, spoiler alert if you haven't seen the movie, he had the chance to save his dad, but his dad told him not to do it because his father knew that the world wasn't ready for a Superman. And then when he came out of Superman, the government and everybody wants to know what the hell's going on and all that jazz. So I thought the character development was great. The villain was good. It deserved to be up here, especially considering how old it was. I will say I'm ashamed though that the studio hasn't jumped the gun to make a second Superman movie. I think Henry Cavill played a phenomenal Superman. It was really well casted. He deserves a second chance, and I'm hoping that moving down the line in a couple years, if they decide to do a Justice League #2 or just reboot that whole shit and start all over, I hope they can keep Henry Cavill. So for that, number 3 here. So number 1, Aquaman. Number 2, Joker. And number 3, Man of Steel. I'm going to go backwards a little bit just so that I can finish off with the middle. So in my 9th spot, and it pains me to say this, just considering how much I'm a big team up guy and like the crossover events, I love those. Justice League flopped, at least in my eyes. This movie came out in 2017. The box office rating was 657 million, which is just shy of what Man of Steel did. When you're talking about having the entire Justice League in here or whatever, the 5 main characters, or 6, sorry, the 6 main characters, I mean, you should have 2 million per person in this damn roster. So it was just rough. I'll give it the benefit of the doubt of saying that during the production, Zack Snyder's daughter unfortunately passed away, so he had to leave the project in the middle of shooting and filming. So you have 2 creative minds trying to make one movie and make it kind of feel synced, when in reality it's you can't pick up Michelangelo's painting and finish it by having Da Vinci take over. Like, there's two different minds. So I think that's what really hurt this film. I also did not very much appreciate it. As much as I don't like Superman and I don't like giving him as much credit as some people give him, I think they made him too overpowered in this movie. The fight scene when he first comes back from the dead, he basically manhandles the whole team until Lois Lane shows up, and then he's back to normal. It was just a flop. They had so much potential to introduce Darkseid and basically create this world like the Avengers did and move it down the line 2-3 years, make a second movie. They just tried to fill a lot and didn't take time to really focus on how they wanted to build the universe. And for that, Justice League unfortunately flopped. That's going to be my number 9 spot. Number 8, this was Suicide Squad. This was released in 2016. The box office rating did better than the Justice League. This was at $746 million for the global box office. Pretty decent. Did better than this, a little less than those, better than this one. But unfortunately, it's low on the list because I think they had too many characters in there. I kind of liked what they were going for, having like all these villains trying to team up and have their storyline explained through that situation, but didn't really work for me. You had, I think, 6 or 7, maybe 8 characters in the main cast that the story is built upon, and you can't really focus building a story, especially a very well detailed developmental story for them within that little amount of time. The villain was kind of cheesy. You essentially just had them trying to fight somebody who was part of the team, and then it's like a bogus love story. I don't know. I liked it at the time, but once you rewatch it, it's kind of a hard rewatch. You're just like, it's kind of cheesy almost. So I will say though, James Gunn, from the director of Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2, he's taken over the project for Suicide Squad Part 2. That I'm excited for because he does really well with like those wacky characters and all that. So I'm hoping when he takes over this second project, it'll be a lot better than what this was, and maybe he'll reboot the system and just pretend that the first one never happened, or he's just gonna say, hey look, I know we messed up, but we're gonna keep it moving, and I'm gonna show you why these characters deserve a second chance. So for that, number 8, Suicide Squad. Moving up to number 7, I have Shazam. Shazam was also another movie that I enjoyed when I first saw it, but it just is a little childish for me almost. This movie came out in 2019. It's the second lowest box office rating of all of the DC movies, with only $365 million. I distinctly remember going to the premiere of this movie and the theater was empty, whereas like going towards all of these other movies and all the Marvel movies, tickets always sell out first couple hours or whatever. There's a lot of hype around the movie. A lot of people are very excited to go watch it and even rewatch it. So considering they only did $365 million, I don't think there was a lot of hype around this, and people just couldn't connect to this character and weren't excited to see him. I did like how childish it was in some occasions. Like for example, essentially I would act the same if I was granted superpowers. I would kind of want to just go and mess around. I wouldn't really want to play the superhero role or whatever. So that I guess I could relate to, but there wasn't much going on. The lines were kind of cheesy. The villains were they weren't strong villains for me. Like, I can care less. The only thing I can say that I have going for this is that moving forward in the Shazam franchise, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, he's going to be playing Black Adam, and I think he's going to play a phenomenal villain. He will not let that role go to waste. And when Black Adam crosses over with Shazam, I think that's when we'll finally get a movie that we deserve. So for that, number 7, Shazam. Moving back towards the middle here, we're going to go to my 4th spot, and that is Wonder Woman. Like I said, I was kind of in between wanting Wonder Woman at my 4th spot and my 3rd spot, but I ended up bumping it down just because I think Man of Steel deserved a little bit more credit. This movie was released in 2017. This was the 3rd highest box office grossing for them. It had $821 million. What I really liked about this was essentially the fact that it was a woman-dominated movie. Marvel hadn't done Captain Marvel yet, and they haven't released Black Widow yet. So there hasn't been like a strong female-centered character yet. And I think DC jumped the gun and they nailed it. I was head over heels for Wonder Woman, especially like her transition from Themyscira to the real world and how she was kind of acting like all ditzy. I don't know, for me I fell for that. I liked it a lot. And they were able to do this film without being too strong on feminism as in like, oh yeah, a woman doesn't need to take no bullshit from any man. Kind of like a little bit they do that in Captain Marvel. So for that I liked it. I also thought it was like the perfect definition of a traditional superhero storyline. She was essentially living on this island where they had no contact with the outside world, and then as soon as she has contact with the outside world, she realizes how corrupt it is and how she wants to be that person to save it. And that journey that she goes through, you know, meeting Steve Trevor, losing Steve Trevor, continuing to want to fight for the safety and the well-being of humanity. I thought that was really well done. So for that, number 4. Also, Wonder Woman 1984 is going to be coming out later this year. It got postponed till August because of this virus, obviously. But I will say I am excited to see that one because I think it's just going to continue to develop her character, and essentially once she gets to her third film, if they do decide to do a third film, they'll finally put it into the present day, and then you can see how she reacts to everything that goes on in the world currently versus like in the past, because this was a period film. Wonder Woman 1984 will be also a period film, and then we got to get her into present day. Moving down to number 5, Batman vs Superman. This was another movie that I liked when it first came out, but after a couple of rewatches and stuff, I can only put it somewhere in the middle. This was released in 2016. The box office, worldwide box office was 873 million, which is pretty high up there for what they have going on. Essentially, I really just like this movie because I'm a big Batman fan. So when they introduced Ben Affleck as Batman, I was like, yeah, let's do it. We need a new Batman in this universe, so let's get it cracking. I will say though, as much as some people don't agree with me, I think Ben Affleck's Batman fight scene in the warehouse when he's trying to save Martha was probably the best Batman scene to this day. How he was like maneuvering and the stunt choreography and all that jazz. I think that was really well filmed, and I'll give it credit for that. But the problem with this movie is they tried to build the universe, the DC universe, too quick. I think this was the second movie that came out, so essentially it was Man of Steel, and then this movie came out next. And this movie introduced Batman, Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, Doomsday, Lex Luthor, all in one movie. And you can't just jump, at least in my eyes, you can't just jump from one character to a universe of characters over the course of one movie. So for that, I think they try to rush it and try to catch up to the Marvel game, when in reality they should have just had Batman vs Superman, left it at that. When you look at the trailer for this, or even just the title, you think Batman vs Superman, when the real title should have been Batman fights Superman for about a minute and a half, and then they gotta work together with Wonder Woman to defeat Doomsday. Like, just too much going on. So, number 5. And moving to my last one, number 6, sixth spot. It's gonna be Birds of Prey. This is the most recent DC movie. This was released in 2020. This unfortunately was the worst box office success, I guess, or failure, whatever you want to call it. It only grossed $201 billion. So box office flop. There wasn't a lot of hype around this movie. As a matter of fact, I think once the opening weekend did so poorly, they ended up changing the name from Birds of Prey and the Emancipation of One Harley Quinn to Harley Quinn Birds of Prey, because they needed a strong name like Margot Robbie to kind of carry the movie, and unfortunately it didn't really work out so well. I think Harley Quinn deserved a redemption arc from, well, not a redemption arc. I think she deserved more screen time from Suicide Squad, and this was their version of that. But that being said, there's only so much you can do with Harley Quinn without including the Joker and without including Batman. Considering those are like her core characters to work with. So it was kind of hard for me to really dive into, oh wow, I can connect to these characters, or I've been excited to see these characters on the big screen, so it didn't really work for me. I will say though, the stunt choreography and the fight scenes were pretty good, especially because of the color that they used and like the glitter and all the explosions and all that shit. It almost felt like a psychedelic trip. If that's what a psychedelic trip is like, I guess, I don't know. But I will say the Arkham games and all that shit, but I think Harley Quinn needs just a third chance, maybe in Suicide Squad that's directed with James Gunn. She'll get a better storyline or whatever, but she needs redemption. Only 200 million. She needs to be in at least 500 or 500 to 800 million. So I'll give her another shot if she makes it on the screen. So for that, number 6. Alright guys, so there you have it. This is my overall ranking of all the DC movies. Aquaman number 1, Joker number 2, Man of Steel number 3, Wonder Woman number 4, Batman vs Superman 5, Harley Quinn, or Birds of Prey, Harley Quinn, Birds of Prey, whatever you want to call it. Number 6, Shazam. Number 7, Suicide Squad. Number 8, and Justice League, unfortunately, at number 9. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your top movie was from the DC universe, as well as your bottom. I'm working on a video similar to this, but with all the Marvel movies. Unfortunately, there is 23 Marvel movies out, or 24 right now. I think 23. And I only know like my top 5 and my bottom 5. I haven't quite figured out the middle yet. So once I figure out that part of the video, I'll put it out for you guys. I'm also waiting on doing some trailer reviews. I know Venom 2 is supposed to be having a trailer drop soon, so I hope to do a trailer reaction or even like a trailer breakdown. But yeah, guys, let me know what you guys think. Leave a like, leave comments. Want to know what you guys have in store, or what you guys have any video suggestions for me to take care of. Okay, we'll talk to you guys soon.